Some buildings are old, some are cursed, but some were born wrong. Tonight, I'll take you to a place few have seen, and none have survived. A floor that was never meant to exist, a floor that hungers. Welcome to the 13th floor. Are you ready to go up? There's something about old apartment buildings, something in the cracked paint, the humming pipes, the way the walls seem to listen when you breathe. The Fairview complex had stood on the edge of town since 1953, 30 floors tall, rotting but stubborn. People passed it every day without a second glance. No one remembered when it started getting strange. Only that rents were cheap. Neighbors disappeared without much noise, and the elevators had always been wrong. A month ago, a new batch of tenants moved in. Caleb, a burned-out journalist hiding from his failures. Elena, a nurse escaping a toxic past. Marcus, a handyman with too many secrets. Sadie, a college student who never stayed anywhere too long. Each of them drawn to the Fairview by something they couldn't explain, something deep in their bones whispering, "Come here, stay." And then there was the 13th floor. The elevator skipped it. The stairwell sealed it with a rusted metal door. Even the blueprints pretended it didn't exist. But late at night, sometimes you could hear footsteps pounding above the 12th floor. Sometimes you could hear voices calling from inside the walls. And one night, someone answered. It started with the sounds. Caleb was the first to hear them, tapping, scraping like fingernails dragging across metal. It came from inside the vents, just above his bed. He pounded on the wall. The tapping stopped. But that night, he dreamed of a door swinging open and something wet dragging itself across the hallway floor. The next morning, Sadie found a smear of blood outside her apartment, a thick, dark trail that led to the elevator, and stopped. No one else seemed to notice. The building's few remaining tenants avoided her eyes. Even the landlord's office was empty, the door hanging open like a mouth missing its tongue. Then came the elevator incident. Elena stepped inside on her way to work. She pressed 12. The elevator groaned, and instead of ascending, it plunged downward. The lights flickered. The buttons on the panel glitched and scrambled, numbers twisting into symbols she couldn't understand. When the doors creaked open, Elena wasn't on the ground floor. She wasn't on 12 either. She stood at a hallway she had never seen before. Walls warped and blistered, the air stinking of rot and burning hair. A faded metal plate hung on the wall, barely readable. 13. A figure stood at the end of the hallway, a hunched silhouette with something wrong about its shape. It twitched forward. Its face was a slick mess of mouths, whispering, calling her name. Elena slammed the door button. The elevator snapped shut and hurled her upward, vomiting her back out onto the 12th floor, gasping and shaking. But after that night, they all heard it, the hum of something alive beneath their feet. The walls bulged when you looked too long. The air tasted like copper and ash. And worst of all, they started seeing the man in black. Every mirror, every reflection, always just behind them, watching, smiling. Something ancient had awakened on the 13th floor, and it was hungry. Within days, the building began devouring them. It started with Marcus, the handyman. One morning, Caleb found Marcus's toolbox scattered down the stairwell, his tools rusted and dripping something thick and black. There were drag marks along the concrete steps, smears that led toward the locked door marked authorized personnel only, the entrance to the hidden 13th floor. When they pounded on the door, it felt soft, like flesh. Then Sadie began changing. She stopped speaking. Her eyes grew sunken, blood vessels spiderwebbing across the whites. At night, she scratched at the walls of her apartment, carving symbols none of them could understand. Swirling loops and jagged mouths, gouged deep enough that her fingers bled, And when Caleb tried to stop her, Sadie turned, and for a split second, her mouth stretched impossibly wide, her jaw unhinging like a snake's, and she whispered, "It's waiting for us." They realized then they weren't just hearing the 13th floor, they were becoming part of it. The decision to enter wasn't really a choice, it was a summons. Late one night, after hearing Marcus's voice calling from beyond the sealed stairwell, ragged, pleading, inhuman, Caleb, Elena, and what was left of Sadie gathered by the rusted door. They armed themselves with whatever they could find, a crowbar, a rusted pipe, a lighter, and hairspray. The door to the 13th floor shuddered under Caleb's first blow. The second hit made it bleed. By the third, it split open with a wet, sucking sound, spilling a wave of thick, red mist into the stairwell. Beyond it, the hallway stretched into impossible darkness, walls pulsing like arteries, the floor slick and sticky underfoot. Something moved at the end of the hall, a twitching mass of limbs and teeth. Sadie was the first to step inside. She didn't look back. Neither did the others. Because once you see the 13th floor, it sees you too. The 13th floor was alive. The walls rippled with every step they took, fleshy and slick. The lights above them flickered not because they were old, but because something moved behind the fixtures, pressing wet shapes against the glass. As Caleb, Elena, and Sadie crept deeper, they realized the corridor never ended. Doors lined both sides, dozens of them, each door breathing, expanding, and contracting as if they had lungs. From behind some, they heard faint sobbing. Behind others, chewing sounds. Sadie staggered forward, her fingers brushing the walls. Her skin peeled away, merging with the pulsating surface. She didn't scream, she only smiled, her teeth bloody, her face stretching unnaturally as she whispered, "He's waiting for us, the father of teeth." Elena pulled Caleb back, but it was too late. Sadie was already sinking into the wall, her body absorbed like a drop of water into a thirsty sponge. Her last words echoed down the corridor. "We belong to him now." They ran. Panic flooded them as the hallway shifted, warping, twisting, doors rearranging themselves. The 13th floor wasn't a place, it was a mouth, and they were sliding down its throat. They burst into a massive atrium at the center of the floor. There, under a ceiling of writhing black tendrils, stood Marcus. Or what was left of him. His body was a patchwork of torn flesh and metal, his eyes glassy and empty, his mouth fused shut by thick black cords. Behind him loomed a colossal figure, humanoid in shape but faceless, its body stitched together from the residents who had gone missing. Arms, legs, torsos, hundreds of them, forming a heaving mass of agony. The father of teeth. It spoke without a mouth, 1,000 whispers pouring into their minds at once. "We built you. You feed us. You are ours." Caleb dropped to his knees, his mind fracturing. Visions flooded him. Every tenant who had ever vanished, their souls screaming from inside the father's body. He saw the original blueprints of the Fairview complex. The 13th floor wasn't an accident. It was designed to be a womb, a place to nurture something older than humanity. And now it was ready to be born. Marcus lurched forward like a puppet, broken tools fused into his arms like weapons. There was no escape. Elena grabbed Caleb's arm, yanking him toward a darkened stairwell that spiraled downward, deeper into the building's guts. "If we can destroy the heart," she gasped, "we can kill it." But as they stumbled into the descending blackness, they heard the father's laughter, low, wet, endless. Because once you were on the 13th floor, you never really left. The stairwell plunged them into pure blackness. Every step they took sounded wet, like their shoes were sinking into meat. The deeper they went, the harder it became to breathe. The air thick and alive with a million whispering voices, promising them peace, promising them an end to the fear, if only they would stop running. Caleb stumbled first, crashing down the final steps into a vast underground chamber. There, beating like a living drum in the center of the room, was the heart, a swollen, glistening mass of muscle and teeth, pumping black fluid through enormous fleshy tendrils that fed into the building above. Elena screamed as something wrapped around her ankle, a sinewy, veined cord pulling her toward the heart. Caleb reacted without thinking. He swung the crowbar down, severing the tendril, spraying a torrent of black blood across his face. The heart shuddered, and with it, the entire 13th floor screamed. A sound so deep and primal that Caleb felt his bones vibrate. They had only seconds. Elena grabbed the lighter and hairspray from her belt. "Light it," she shouted, tears streaking her blood-stained cheeks. But just as Caleb flicked the lighter, Marcus came staggering out of the darkness. What was left of him? His torso split open, tendrils spilling out, his eyes burning with a terrible, pleading hunger. "Don't leave us," Marcus gurgled. Elena hesitated for just a heartbeat. It was all the heart needed. Tendrils shot forward, wrapping around her, yanking her upward. Her scream ripped through the chamber as she was slammed into the ceiling, impaled on spikes of bone that erupted from the stone above. Blood poured down in rivers. Her body twitched, then stilled. Caleb didn't have time to mourn. The lighter hissed to life in his hand. With a roar of pure rage and horror, he hurled it into the heart. The explosion was instantaneous. The chamber was engulfed in flames, black, oily fire that screamed as it burned. The tendrils writhed, pulling back into the heart, the walls convulsing as the entire 13th floor collapsed inward, like a dying lung. Caleb ran, sprinting up the melting stairs, through the warping corridors, past the doors that bled and screamed his name. He burst through the stairwell door into the 12th floor just as the walls began to collapse, dragging the 13th floor down into itself like a sinkhole to hell. For a brief moment, everything was silent. The Fairview complex stood in eerie stillness, the top floors swallowed by blackened ruin, and Caleb, he staggered into the night, broken, bloodied, barely alive. Weeks later, news crews arrived. They blamed faulty wiring, gas leaks, structural collapse. No one spoke of the missing tenants. No one asked about the faces that still appeared in the windows after dark, mouths stretched wide in silent screams. And Caleb, he moved far away, changed his name, tried to forget. But sometimes, late at night, he swears he hears the elevator in his new building ding open. He never checks, because deep down, he knows you can destroy the body, you can burn the heart, but you can never kill the 13th floor. It's still out there, waiting. You made it back, this time. But be careful next time you step into an elevator. Sometimes, no matter what button you press, it still takes you to the 13th floor, and next time, you might not come back. Sleep tight.
Like and subscribe, and I'll see you in your nightmares.